Hi, my name is Michael Sipos, and I am the UF IFAS Extension Florida Sea Grant Agent in Collier County. And today I'm going to show you how to fillet a red grouper and get the most out of your fish by also getting the cheek meat and the throats, or the collars as some people say. So this is our red grouper. I am going to change the camera angle and we will begin. So this is our fish right over here. I speared this fish myself the other day, and I'm really excited to eat it. It's one of my favorite fish out there. And I'll give you a little bit of life history characteristics as we begin. So this fish actually has a lot of head meat up in this area. A lot of people like to start their fillet from here, but if you start to run up the dorsal fin all the way towards the eye section, you can get a lot more meat out of this fish. So let's get started. So right now I am running my fillet knife along the spine on top of the fish, going about a ½ inch or so. All the way to the tail. And then when I do my line along the body, I'll start really where that gill plate is and cut upwards towards the head, trying not to leave any meat behind. And then we're just going to lift the fillet up lightly and sort of run your knife at a downward angle towards the spine, and you're going to feel the tip of the knife sort of make like a chattering noise as you skim that backbone. And as you do this, you sort of put pressure further down in the fillet as you're lifting it up to provide some sort of tension, so it's easier to lift that meat off the bone. Red grouper are a very valuable fish for the Florida economy, both recreationally and commercially. In 2019, almost 2.4 million pounds of red grouper was landed commercially, and about 65,000 pounds of that was caught in Collier County, or landed in Collier County, which is the county that I work in. Okay, so this is one half of the fillet right here. This is what the fish looks like. Now let's do the other side. Just a quick repeat of what we just did. The scientific name of this fish is Epinephelus morio, and they're a grouper species belonging to the family Serranidae, which also includes gag grouper and black grouper, but gag grouper and black grouper are actually in a different genus known as Mycteroperca. So red grouper and Goliaths belong to the same genus, and they sort of do the same kind of life history characteristics of becoming ecosystem excavators, living on that hard bottom. Goliaths can be more associated with structure than red grouper are. Red grouper, they spawn offshore, they move in as juveniles, and then they'll move further back offshore as they grow and age. And their diet consists of a lot of crustaceans when they're younger, and it sort of switches over to fish as they get older. The world record red grouper was actually caught in St. Augustine, I believe, and it was 42 pounds, which I would love to see that fish because the largest one I've ever caught was about 25 pounds or so. They can live up to 25 to 30 years of age. The oldest one in the Gulf of Mexico that was reported was about 29 years old. They're protogynous hermaphrodites, which means that they first are female and then later turn into males as they get older. Okay, so we got this other fillet. And let's go ahead and take the skin off those fillets before we try to get any of those cheeks or the collars off the grouper. Put them off to the side. Use my paper towels and clean up my workstation. Yep, so they first are born female and turn into males, and that sex change will happen around anywhere from about 6 to 7 years old. They reach sexual maturity at about 4 to 6 years old. Okay, so I got my fillet here. A lot of times it's easier to bring it to the edge of the table because you want to have your knife sort of hovering over the edge because it's sort of harder to make it go flush when you have this handle. So got my fillet over to the edge. Go at a light angle downwards. These things have pretty hard skin, so it's hard to sort of cut through. However, you want to, hover over the skin because you don't really want to get that red muscle that might have more of a fishy taste associated with it. And there's my skin. Here's my fillet. Then you have to feel for the bones, or the rib cage, or the Y bones, as some people call it. You can, it'll run along this line of like capillaries, and you want to go about 4 or 5 inches into the fillet and make incisions on either side of those bones. Cut them out. So that's your finished fillet. Some of these grouper can carry parasites, which are harmless if you cook it correctly, which is at 145 degrees internal temperature, or if you freeze the fillet at -4 degrees for 7 days. The FDA recommends, all these parasites are dead, but you can see them slightly right there. And there's a decent amount of just different kind of cestodes, trematodes, nematodes that can inhabit them, but they're harmless if your fish is treated correctly. Now once again, I am hovering above the skin, trying not to get some of that red meat on there. And there's my fillet. This one I got some of the stomach meat in there, so I'm going to trim it up a little bit. There's some of that internal lumen lining. And once again, I'm going to try to look for these ribs that are right here. Feel on either side of them. Cut about 4 or 5 inches back, really close to the bones themselves. Trim it up. So these fillets are ready for the pan or the freezer. Just wash them up. I'm going to put them in my bag while we get the cheek meat and the collars. Let's get some paper towel. For the rest of the portion, you could either gut the fish or you could sort of separate the spine from the head. It might be a little bit easier to manipulate it. So I am just going to get this serrated fillet knife, and you could cut between the vertebrae and sort of snap that off. Okay, now we have less to deal with. Again, clean this up. These grouper in the Gulf will spawn from January to April, and they can spawn many times per season, so they just don't spawn one time. So for the cheek meat, you can see that right here. You can really just almost feel where that cheek meat's going to be, and a lot of that time it goes to waste, but this is one of my favorite cuts of the fish. And the way you get this cheek meat out is you get your fillet knife very carefully, and there'll be a softer pocket right here. You'll run your fillet knife along that soft pocket line, angling the tip downwards, because the meat is almost located in like a cup inside the grouper's gill plate sort of area. So that, cutting it. Larger fish will have bigger cheeks, smaller fish will have smaller cheeks. Sometimes it's not worth it, other times it's definitely worth it. And this meat's a lot finer than the fillet. It's a different consistency, which a lot of people really enjoy. So I got this flap right here, which is the cheek. You can see that cavity that I came out of. I'm going to do a light cut along here and get that meat out. So I sort of messed up on that one, but that's the cheek meat. So these are perfect little nuggets. I'll put that off to the side. See if I could get the other one a little bit better. Some people will actually just sort of peel the meat off the skin, since the grouper skin is so rough, especially around that face area. So once again, I'm running it along that jawbone, which this is the maxilla and the supramaxilla. That's the maxilla right here. Angling it downwards, my tip downwards. And you're gonna sort of make your cut along the eye area. Do a little cut right here. Let's try to peel this one off with our fingers. There you go, that's the better way of doing it. There's your cheek meat. So this is great. The striations of the fillet are a little bit different than the actual main body portion, and the texture is really great. So next up, we're going to try to remove the collars. Some people call them grouper wings, sometimes people call them throats. Some people will actually cut all the way up to the heart area portion, the isthmus, when gutting this fish if they want the collar. Other people will leave them whole and sort of part them out, like wing them out. So for this, I'm going to show you on this side first. You're going to peel back the gill plate. And inside the gill plate, you can see the gills. You don't want to include that in your wing portion or your collar. But there's this bone right here. And what you're going to do is you're going to run your knife up the bone and then back down the bone, because there's a couple bones that makes the inside of that gill plate. So you might need to clear some of that skin off. So I made my initial cut, boom, up the bone. And I'm going to turn it and go down the bone. And then I'm going to sort of run along that hard bone side. Inside. cut it up here. I got one portion of that collar done. Now let's move to the other side. And this one, I already cut that bone. You're going to cut on the inside of that gill area up to the throat. And there you have it. There's your grouper collar, your grouper throat. Like I said, some people like to make them into two different ones and they call them wings. Other people like to leave them together, sort of score it down the middle to make it lay a little bit flat. You can trim up the fins, and this is really excellent if you bake it, if you sort of pan fry it. It's really versatile. The meat is a little bit different consistency than that regular fillet, but as you can see, we got a lot more meat from this grouper than you would if you would have just got the fillet portion, and it's super delicious. So try your hand at getting the most possible from your fish today. Thanks for watching.